I had a cat that was left with me, and my cat, Peaches, she was afraid of everybody. She was terrified except of me. And I decided to apply what I knew works with people to release traumas, because this was like a life-changing result. We had a different cat in front of us, and it just took over. You know, people wanted to know how they could do it. They wanted me to write a book. They wanted me to teach classes, and on it went. And it was just so amazing because people got enlightened through their animal friends. First of all, they didn't realize they were spiritual beings, most people. But when, of course, I approached animals as spiritual beings and the animals answered as spiritual beings, and people realized they could make decisions, they have emotions, they have a spiritual path, they have a journey, they have things they go through, then people started realizing things about themselves.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited about this episode of Messages of Hope. My guest today is Penelope Smith. I would call her an animal communicator. I read that she calls herself an interspecies telepathic communicator. And I love that word, telepathy. So even if you don't have pets, definitely you will want to watch this show, because you're going to learn a lot about how we can communicate with anyone and anything without needing a body to do so. Let me welcome my guest. Penelope, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Suzanne. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Would you agree with that statement I just made, that we can communicate without a body with anybody and anything?
Yes, and we can communicate telepathically. Telepathy is feeling across a distance, and all of us can do that. We're born with that ability. And yes, anybody can rediscover it. We've been socialized out of it, but we can rediscover it.
I love it. And just talking before we came on the air, I was laughing because my guides let me know I wasn't quite ready. I didn't have my microphone hooked up, and you totally understood that. You said you've been communicating with guides and spirits since a child. Would you tell us about that?
Yes, well, I was very aware of who I was before I came into this life. I was very aware I had a mission to help the world. When I was a kid, I called it Save the World, of course. I was going to save the world like a little Supergirl. But I was very aware that I was here on a mission. And so I had guides with me from the beginning, spirit guides in all forms, including power animals. And I was raised as a Catholic, and I went to Mass every day, and I always prayed to the saints and angels and Mary and Jesus and everyone else, and considered them all with me. And so because I had chosen a path of taking on a very abusive family. My parents were alcoholics and extremely abusive, sexually abusive, emotionally, you name it. We experienced it. And but it was part of my journey to turn all that into love and help the generations back in time, forward in time, to not have to go through this, to raise the evolutionary consciousness of all beings. So when I was little, I just smiled all the time, and I was really happy. I mean, the saints were all around me, and I felt, and the animals, you know, it was totally clear to me they were spiritual beings and my friends. And then when the really nasty stuff started, and of course that affects you, your emotional aura and your whole being, I learned to keep quiet about a lot of things that I was doing, you know, spiritually. And my mother told me it was all my imagination, and nobody would ever believe me. They wouldn't believe me about that. They wouldn't believe me about the abuse, on and on, you know, kind of programming me that I was isolated. And I knew I wasn't, you know, I knew I had all these beings that were behind me, but I also knew I had to get through this first 17 years so I could leave and get on my mission. But it was a brutal time. And at the same time, of course, there was a lot of magic in it. And I knew as a child, I just went, you know, people think they aren't conscious that they're spirits. They think that they're stuck and that they're a body and they have to strive for things and that life is really awful. And I would read the storybooks and I would say, they've got it. The people who wrote the storybooks, they know the animals communicate. There are guides, there are spirits around us. We're spiritual beings, and we have powers. We have powers that are beyond what people normally think of as human. And so I just carried on. And of course, I had a lot later on in my life when I finally did leave home and got out to do my mission in the world. I had a lot of work to do. Obviously, I had a lot of trauma. I had a lot of emotional work, which I did. I worked with a lot of different people, a lot of different counselors and healers and everything else through my life. But most of all, I was focused on my work, on my mission here. And so I started out that I was going to help people wake up. I was going to help them to realize who they were as spiritual beings. So I didn't know what field I was going to be in.
May I just interrupt? The reason I keep saying wow, wow, wow is because I know and I teach that we all have guides, but so few people know this from the beginning, like
Yes.
you. That's the wow part. And the whole time you've been talking, I've been thinking, I'd love to hear your opinion on why more people don't know that from the beginning. And
You want that now? Did you want me to talk about that?
We'll come back to that. I don't want
Okay.
to.
Okay. So continuing on with the life path is, I knew that I had to help people to wake up, so to be more conscious. And I used to say, well, my parents are seeking spirit in a bottle. You know how they call whiskey and wine, and they call them spirits. And I said, well, they're seeking spirit in a bottle because they don't realize they have it within them. So I realized that everywhere I went, nobody was aware until the 70s, until people really started to get into meditation and yoga, and all the gurus were coming to help, and there were very few people I could relate to, and because I was a very spiritual person, and I didn't want the normal things. I didn't want to get married and have kids and a car and a two-car garage in the suburbs, that none of that. All I was focused on was my mission. So in college, well, first I went into the convent. I was, for a short time, for 9 months, I was in Sisters of the Holy Cross. I was in a missionary order. And again, my focus was on, okay, this'll be it. But it wasn't. I wasn't meant to stay in the convent. And when I left, I went to college. I continued. We had college in the convent, but I continued in college, and I focused on psychology. And then I went, this is too mechanical. This is too statistical. And then I went into sociology, thinking that would be better. But no, I went, it's all about studies that go into books and libraries. It's nothing about helping people. and I broadened out to Latin American studies and social sciences, and figured, well, I'd get out in the world. Maybe I'd do the Peace Corps. And I had various offers, and then I met someone and got married, and then I left because I wasn't doing my mission, although it gave me time to do a retreat and really focus on, okay, what is it? I'm really an artist, and I really love to dance, and I love to sing, and maybe it's going to be that way, or maybe it's going to be helping people by speaking to them, because I'm a very good speaker. I thought, well, okay, maybe I'll be speaking to people and be a spiritual teacher. It wasn't formulated. I just kept going on my path with what was presented and what I needed to learn from each step of the way. And then I became a spiritual counselor. I trained to help people through their traumas, basically, and through their blocks, because I realized, well, people have so many blocks to waking up. You can't just tell them, well, you're a spiritual being, and they go, oh yeah, wow, I'm a spiritual being. They have too many things weighing them down. So I started out being a spiritual counselor for people, which I very much enjoyed, and trained a lot in that, and got a lot of counseling myself through that. And then I had a cat that was left with me by a person who left town, and she just left the cat. And and the cat was very, very afraid of people. I lived in a shared apartment with a bunch of people. And because at that time I was very young, we didn't have much money, and I was a counselor, I mean, you're not raking in the
Right.
money. So we shared an apartment. It mostly was with people who worked at the counseling center. And my cat, Peaches, she was afraid of everybody. She was terrified except of me.
Hmm.
And which is very common with animals, that they aren't afraid of me, even if they're afraid of everybody else. So anyway, one day she came in after being outside, and she had a big bite on her back. She obviously had been in a tussle with other cats. It was a huge bite. And so I tried to work with it the normal way, clean it, put salve on it, but it wouldn't heal. She kept scratching it open. Her hair started falling off. She looked absolutely terrible. I mean, this bloody wound kept getting bigger and bigger. And so I sat her down and I decided to apply what I knew works with people to release traumas, because Peaches was a traumatized cat. I mean, not only this trauma, but the fact that she was so afraid of people. So I sat her down and we started doing counseling telepathically.
I know. I
And
read this in your wonderful book, and I love this story. I'm so glad.
yes, so this is my first counseling session. And after she told me trauma after trauma, the trauma of being bitten by cats, being chased by a lot of cats, traumas with people, on and on. And the session must have lasted 20 minutes, a half an hour. And she rolled these, they went into the past, and she felt very relieved, and she just fell asleep. So I didn't know what was going to happen. This was the first time I've ever worked with an animal the same way I worked with humans, but I always had the telepathic skill was there. So, and of course I knew she was a spiritual being and she could understand everything, so there was no problem. Well, Peaches was a completely different being. The next morning, her wound had already started to heal. She stopped scratching, so her hair wasn't falling out anymore. The wound within a week was totally scabbed over, totally healed. But the most incredible thing was that Peaches was a different cat. She wasn't afraid of people anymore. My roommates thought I had slipped in a different cat. They said that couldn't be her. Because she always ran from them. Well, she sat on everybody's lap, she purred, she rubbed against them, and she was no longer afraid of other cats.
And you
So
said in the book that part of the reason that, or maybe the reason the wound wasn't healing was she was trying to leave physically.
yeah, well, this came up in the counseling session. Oh, yes, thank you for reminding me that this was the most important thing. In the counseling session, she realized that if she kept the wound open and if she looked really ugly, everybody would stay away from her. And that released a whole, like a river of emotional charge, just like peeled off of her. So again, she became a very different cat, and she was never chased by other cats. Again, she was a happy little camper. She just enjoyed life. And I went, wow, wow. That kind of result takes many, many, many hours with humans generally.
Huh.
And compared to this was like a life-changing result. We had a different cat in front of us,
Yeah. Yeah.
and who could live and enjoy life. So then I just, I didn't think of it as a profession or anything. I was doing my work with people, but people started to find out, and I started to do it, and I figured, well, this will be my practice time. I'll find out if it works with lots of animals. So I continued, no charge. I just continued seeing what would happen. And I had incredible results. They continued and continued and continued till finally later this profession, it became a profession. I started charging for it and it just took over. People wanted to know how they could do it. They wanted me to write a book. They wanted me to teach classes, and on it went. And it was just so amazing because people got enlightened through their animal friends. First of all, they didn't realize they were spiritual beings, most people. But when, of course, I approached animals as spiritual beings and the animals answered as spiritual beings, and people realized they could make decisions, they have emotions, they have a spiritual path, they have a journey, they have things they go through, then people started realizing things about themselves. So I saw people getting enlightened through their animal friends. Through communicating with their animal friends, people got more aware of themselves as spiritual beings, and they grew more. They start to realize that animals were their teachers, healers, and they had a whole different relationship to life. I mean, it went on. I just spoke to everybody about it. I was a primary person who was teaching at that time. There were a couple other early animal communicators in the 70s, but I was the teacher. I said, I'm going to educate people. I'm going to teach them they can do this. They can do this themselves. And I'm going to, train animal communicators so we get this branched out. So we get a lot more people being reached. So I went on radio, TV, no internet, of course, at
Yeah.
that time. Radio, TV, lots of newspaper articles. I did lots of public speaking. I talked to horse clubs, dog clubs, all kinds of clubs. I went to metaphysical bookstores, and I made big breakthroughs among the metaphysical people because they didn't think animals were spiritual beings either. I mean, it was quite amazing. They would say only humans have a spiritual journey. Animals are unaware. And I go, okay, I have something to talk to you about here. And so it broke through the metaphysical community, shifted the consciousness there. That was all through the late 70s, 80s, shifted the consciousness there. The shamanic community, I went into, of course, I loved shamanism, and I went into the shamanic community with Michael Harner, who was sort of a foundational person in bringing shamanism to the West. And the shamanic people didn't realize that you could communicate with the animals. They were communicating with power animals. And I go, it's telepathy. You're doing the same thing with the power animals. The telepathic communication that applies to guides or power animals or to anybody, to beings that have gone on, it's all the same. So just apply it to your animal friends and realize they're powerful beings too. Now you got to learn about them. And so then the shamanic community shifted. So I had a lot of shamanic practitioners become animal communicators. So we broke through in a lot of fields. And of course, the mainstream public were a lot of the people that came to me were animal lovers, and they sort of felt like any inkling they had of their ability to communicate with animals, nobody else believed it. And so when they came to me, they went, whoa, somebody else. And I said, yep. And you too. You can do this. And now you learn how it works so you can discover more about it and develop it. So these were the early people were, of course, and still are animal lovers, but now we're going further and further into the mainstream of people who don't have much awareness of themselves as spiritual beings. And so this is the time for animals to wake them up even more.
I love that twist. That's like I know I'm a medium, but it's not my principal thing. It's the teaching, and the mediumship helps people awaken to who they are. And you're doing the same thing with animals.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic.
Yeah, it was like I always loved animals. I was always with them. And of course, through my really damaging childhood, I mean, where it was really gruesome, they helped me a lot. The animals were there for me. I was there for them. I was trying to keep them out of the fray of what was happening in the house, and they were helping me. And then the wild animals, I would go and sit with them and talk to them, and just I had a lot of help, and of course the spirits. And I wouldn't have gotten through it had I not. And of course, I knew who I was. I knew my mission, which normally people discover much later in life. I knew it before I came in. I have never lost it.
Who
And
were you that you knew? Put that into words where some people might be saying, what does she keep saying? She knew who she was even when she came
yeah,
here.
always.
But
When I was a little
you,
baby, people
who
used to
are
say,
you?
they used to just say I radiated, and I had this huge smile, and I was just always smiling. And pictures of me as a child, you just see this light coming off of me. And of course, became difficult. And getting along with humans obviously was a difficult thing after being so abused. I was really afraid of people, but I was very strong on my mission. So I said, no matter how afraid I am, I'm going to do it. I'm here, and I'm going to go forward. So I would say always, I was aware of the angels, and I can't name a time. Was I 6 months old? Was I 2 years old? it always was through me. I never lost consciousness of spirit. I never lost consciousness of being a spiritual being and going from life to life. Never. Never did I think I was a body, ever.
But please, I want to hear it in your words, because you only said, I knew who I was. For those who are brand new on this journey, tell them who you were and who you are. I want to hear this.
Yes. Well, I'm a spiritual being. I mean, it's not an identity. I'm not Penelope Smith. That's a name. That's an identity. I'm not this body. This is what I'm traveling through in this life. I am a being who goes from life to life. And when I leave this body, then I go to the spiritual realm. And unless and if I'm meant to come back, then I come back again. And again, for me, it was a conscious coming back. And I didn't forget when I came in. Now, most people, the blinders come on right after birth. It's pretty quick after birth. They may even keep some of it as a baby, but pretty much the contact with humans and their consciousness puts the dampers down. So kids who start talking about they can see spirits or they remember their past lives, they're quickly shut up. Not now, no. I mean, it's changing, but
Yes.
they're quickly shut up and told that, that's all fantasy and you better not say anything like that. Or you're crazy. Some people are told they're crazy. I mean, I was told that enough. So I learned I'll just keep quiet, but I'm not going to give it up. I didn't trust humans. They were so unconscious. I said, why should I give this communication with animals up when the animals are there for me? And I can understand them, they can understand me. Why would I then turn to them and say, well, sorry, you're stupid. You're unconscious because humans say you are. I go, well, humans say a lot of things that are completely wrong. And the same with the spirits. You're talking to spirits. Well, I saw spirits all around me. I saw spirits who had gone on. People who had difficulty would come to me and I would help them to, get free of what they were stuck in this world. I mean, I did that all the time. So there's a consciousness of the bigger picture. When I say who I am, I'm talking about eternal being, who goes on, who has many experiences in the physical world. We learn a lot of different things from this world, and then we take it with us to the next and wherever we go. And we keep going on our journey, whatever it is, whatever our journey is. And again, I was aware of my journey. And as I continued through this life, I started remembering past lives. And I started, just being aware of that. But again, it's not something you talk about to anybody else. So I said, fine, But later, people started waking up. Again, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, people started waking up so you could actually talk about these things to people. And I started to be able to have friends because there were people who knew who they were. They weren't just feeling they were stuck in some socialized body identity.
Yes.
And so then I could have, people, friends, and of course, all my students. I have lots of friends who have been my students because they're very, aware and sweet and wonderful people.
So let's talk about teaching people to do this, so that you have students. I learned about you through Stephen Dinan, the founder and CEO of the Shift Network. He reached out and he said, you have to meet Penelope Smith. He called you the grandmother of animal communication. I mean, like
Yes.
like the pioneer. I love that title.
Well, it was given early on. Again, I focused on teaching. So my focus was on let's give this back to people. Let's help them to wake up to it. And let's get a lot of people, sort of, a team, and keep it going, keep it going, keep it going. So there were, again, I said there were a few other animal communicators, but they were not so much focused on teaching. It was a lot of consultations, which I did, of course, thousands and thousands of consultations, but I wanted to get out there. So then after many years, people started calling me, and I started Species Link magazine, which was the only magazine dedicated to interspecies telepathic communication in the world. It's no longer published, but It was for decades, and I started that. And so people started first calling me, giving me names, oh, you're the mother of interspecies communication. So I said, great, but then I got older and there were more generations. Now my students were teaching students and their students were teaching students. And so then it was the grandmother. And I said, really, I'm pretty much the great grandmother now. And I
No.
might even be a great great grandmother. It's going on and on now. There are a number of generations. I have to count them.
You're
But
still
anyway, it shifted to grandmother. And I really like grandmother. Again, in shamanism, I have spiritual guides that are called the ancient grandmothers and grandfathers. And grandmother gives a warm and compassionate feeling to people. And so I like grandmother. So I just took that on and sort of spread that around that that's what people call me because they did. And people liked it too. They liked grandmother. And I said, well, yeah, I've got wrinkles now. I'm in my 70s. I mean, hey, grandmother, it's appropriate.
but you're still teaching, which is why Stephen reached out. So
Yeah,
I don't know if you took a hiatus, but
I
I
did.
definitely want to take your new course, because even though I communicate with people, there must be something getting in the way, because in fact, I'll ask you now. I have two little dachshunds, and one of them, Nellie, will come up and she will just look me in the face,
Yes,
and she's very clearly trying to tell me something.
exactly.
Now,
Exactly.
Penelope, why, as I am a spiritual
Okay.
educator,
So
why can I not tell what
this
you?
is what you're doing. And this is very common with people.
Okay.
You're staring at her. You're looking at her and your mind starts to go. Okay, you have to get in the same kind of consciousness that you get when you're talking to spirits. It's the same consciousness. You
Yeah.
don't stare at the spirits and go, "Oh, what are they saying?
You.
Oh, I wonder who they are." Where we start out, we put our animals into a different category. We sort of we separate from them. If you can't get their communication, you are separating from them. You're going, okay, well, what are they thinking? You're putting your mind in the way. And so you got to look at your little characters, your little friends there, as spiritual beings on a journey. And if they're with you, you have a symbiosis. You are here to help each other. They're helping you, you're helping them. So now you just open, and I recommend to people that they close their eyes, because humans get very visual and they start thinking when they look and they start judging. So they look at the dog and they go, well, he's a little dog. What could he say? And all that gets in the way. It's nothing to do with anything. Your dog, everybody's dogs, cats, all the beings, they have their own lives. They have their own thoughts. They also have this beautiful relationship with you. They want to communicate with you. I always tell people, I ask people, I say, do your animals stare at you? And they go, oh yeah. I said, well, they are communicating to you and you're not getting it. So you just go soft. You know how to do it. You
Yes.
ground, you go soft. You open to your animal friend as a spiritual being. Yes, they have a dog body, just like I have a human body, but I'm a spiritual being. They're a spiritual being. You open up to them, and suddenly their thoughts and feelings come across to you. For you, it'll be very easy to shift because you know how to do this. You've been
Yeah.
doing it for a long, long time with the spirits. It's the same thing. So we just have to get out of this consciousness that animals are something different.
Huh.
Yes, they have different bodies and they're going to tell you different things because they have different senses. But that's on their animal side, just like we have our human side. We can all relate to each other as spiritual beings. And I will tell you, as soon as you relate to them as spiritual beings, they pay attention to you more, they respect you more, and you get it more. You open the door, you open the heart soul door, and there you are. So you sit with your little dog, and suddenly you get it. You get her feelings, streams of feelings, and then she'll start telling you about why she came here and how she's helping you and what she likes about her life. Ask her anything. You'll get it. I mean, this is going to be so easy for you just to open the door. But this is very common. I've written and have an audio recording on the telepathic journey, opening to the whole. And when people start out, this is one of their major blocks is they look at animals as something else. In fact, as things. They objectify. Just like people objectify themselves and they go, well, I'm a body or I'm a human being. Well, you aren't a human being. You're operating in a body just like your dog is. So start relating to them that way, and the door is open. Trillions of beings you can communicate with.
You know, you've given me this huge aha, and if I don't want to do too much of the talking here, but I, I was opening to the spirit world, getting incredible evidence as a medium, but was having a big challenge reading people psychically until I realized, now I see I was doing the same thing with people as I was doing with the dogs. I saw a person in front of me as separate from me instead of just merging and becoming one being with them. And then all of a sudden I opened up to them. So this
Got
is
it.
exactly right.
You
It's what
got it.
I've been looking at Nellie and Rusty as separate little beings there instead of just opening to the merging with the
You
soul.
got it. You got it. And it's a major technique that I use. I start people, I have a lot of different exercises I have people do. And one of the major things people discover is that they get more true communication instead of their mixing in their own thoughts and feelings when they actually unite with the animal. Instead of looking them as a thing, they are one with the animal as a spiritual being. And suddenly they get the dog's thoughts, their feelings, they get how the dog smells. They can experience life as the dog. And your dogs
That happened.
willingly give that to you because they want you to understand them. They don't have any problem with you looking at them as a spiritual being and feeling one with them. I mean, what better way to understand them and to communicate with them?
Yeah. How about advice for people? For example, and I need to do it differently now because I've been talking to my dogs as if they're separate. But when they get nervous because guests are coming, they see you're getting ready for a party, or you have repairmen coming, and somebody made it clear to me, let them know they're only going to be here a short time, that they're safe. But I've been talking to them like they're separate. I feel that we could communicate in advance in the
Yes,
way you're saying
and they
better.
get, they get it. A lot of people, when you start out, people do it as a sort of separate thing. So they tell their dog, okay, the repairman is going to be noisy, but you can go in this room and in your crate and be very safe. It's only going to be for a half an hour. And the dog goes, whew. But they already get, if you're in tune with them, people think, well, you must talk to your animals a lot. I say, I don't.
Mm.
We just get it from each other. I mean, don't you have the same thing with humans that you're close to?
Oh,
You
yes.
just get things from each other. You don't keep talking. I mean, after you've been with each other a while, the talking can become less
Oh, yes.
because you completely understand each other. You flow with each other. Well, so I don't say to Pepito, my little dog over here, oh, I'm going to be doing this conference and you can stay in the office. I don't say any of that. He already knows. He looks at me, I left to use the bathroom for the last time before coming on the call, and he goes out the door and he says, "It's time." And I said, "Yeah, I know, Pepito. I'm coming back." He's so cute. He's so adorable. He said, "It's time." So
Chihuahua.
they get it when you include them. When you include them in everything, they get it. It doesn't have to be a formal thing, but when people are new at it, it's important for them to make it more formal so they know they're doing it. It's not so much the animals. It's important for people to know that they are communicating clearly, that they have a relationship with the animal. But as I talk in when I say opening to the whole, it keeps changing. First, it's more objectified and it's out here, and you're communicating out there. So you bounce communications out, you receive and then pretty soon you're in the field. You're in the unified field together. So do I have to tell all the animals, oh, I'm coming, watch out for me, the wild animals? No, they know. And they know who I am, and I know who they are. Now, if I feel an animal is afraid, and whenever you're afraid, you tend to shut out your knowingness. So when an animal gets afraid, like they're running away from you, I just let them know, it's okay. I'm going this way, and I'm just tending to the chickens. You don't have to worry. I'm not going to be chasing after you. And they go, oh, 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 yes, it's you, it's you. But you know, they're going to respond instinctually to a human coming
Yeah.
as a little bit of fear. But pretty soon I have to watch out I don't step on them, you know, because they get, oh, it's just you. And I said, yeah, but you're little. So, you know, with the rabbits and the lizards, I say, you're little. So do move out of my way because I don't always see you, you know, with, and my big feet might bump into you. But it becomes more natural. It becomes a more natural flow. But when you start out, it's not like that for people. They don't know what to do. They go, oh, I'm so blocked. I can't get anything. I can't get anything. Well, of course, they keep telling themselves that. And plus, they don't know what it is. Once they discover what telepathic communication is, then I do this as a whole process, which I'll be doing in my course with the Shift Network. We'll do a whole process. We'll show you with exercises how you've already done this, how it works for you, how you're blocking yourself. Because people need to know their blocks too, so that they can remove them.
How about one example of how we're already doing this?
Okay, so people will, again, we'll be doing an exercise of recalling different things with animals, and people will go, oh, yes, I knew I had to go into the barn. I knew there was something wrong. I just knew I had to go there. And so they went into the barn and they found their horse was caught underneath the fence.
Ah, oh,
How did they know that? That's telepathy.
okay.
They got the horse's you fear, and the horse is going, help me, I'm caught. And they got it as an intention, as an image, barn. I've got to go to the barn. There's something wrong. And they got it as a feeling, danger. So they went to investigate. And so people start to go, oh, I pick up intentions. I got their thought. I didn't get the full picture of the horse. But again, that comes later for people. They develop all their senses. In the beginning, I just get them to discover how you're already doing it or how you're stopping yourself, like we just did with you. Okay, you go, but I can't get their communication. Okay, easy. With you, of course, very easy.
Yeah. I can't wait
but
to talk to my dogs and say, I'm sorry, I'll be better.
But even the leaning forward, I noticed, and this is what people do.
I do
You,
that a
as
lot.
soon as you talked about your dogs, you leaned forward.
Yeah.
That's a sure sign that you're thinking and trying to figure them out. And I tell people, lean back, open your arms, and of course you open your heart, your chest, you open your body, you open your awareness. So I tell people, lean back, because as soon as you're going like this, there's anxiety. I know you have anxiety. I
Ah,
know you're trying to figure your dog out. I know you're blocked. Okay, so go like this. I don't lean over animals. No, we just hang out. Unless we're engaging, engaging in massage or something like that. But it's a whole different thing. You can see it in people's mannerisms. They'll tighten up their face, they'll go like this.
mhm.
And I say, okay, lean back, feel your feet on the ground. I mean, you know all this. Connect with Mother Earth. Take a nice deep breath. And just let your animal be who they are, a fellow spiritual being that you are now in touch with.
Wow.
And people discover in different ways. And some people have more anxiety, they have more blocks they've put up to it. They've been socialized in different ways and they need to uncover that. And other people just snap it. They just get it right away. They just go, oh my gosh. They read my book and they go, oh my gosh, I've been doing this. And now they know how it works. And it's important to know how it works because then you can develop it. And then you don't let other things get in the way. It's good to know the blocks too. I go over the blocks. I've seen what people do over and over and over again. So I know the entire list of what people do to themselves to stop themselves. And then we do the right things. Then we do the things that help to open you up. And voila.
So what are you going to be going over in the new course?
Well, we're going to lay the whole foundation for really solid interspecies telepathic communication. See, the problem is that some people will do it very superficially. They may be trained by other people, or they may not be trained at all, and they just go, oh, this is it, and they're mixing their own thoughts in. That's very, very common. I've seen people out in the world who have picked this up, but what they're doing is they're giving advice. This is not about giving it your own advice. This is about listening to the animal, fully understanding them, getting their viewpoint, and then the solutions follow from that. The people have the solutions. The people understand better. The animal, you can check with them on what will work to help handle the situation. Or a lot of times they're just understood and everything dissolves. The problem just isn't there anymore. Once the people understand, the animal goes, well, hallelujah, I don't have to spray anymore to show you that there's something wrong, because now you know what's going on. So we'll be going through the whole foundation, and I'll coach people. We'll be doing exercise after exercise, including homework exercises in between the class, because we do it once a week. And we'll be doing exercise after exercise to open it, ground it, develop it solidly. I'm really interested in people having a solid foundation, because when you have that solid foundation, then anything else you do after that, wow, it just goes better. So whether you learn healing techniques for animals, or whether you add on some other talent you have that you really like, you've got the foundation, and you won't get into the thing that I see where people run their agendas on people. They go, oh, well, you did this to your dog, and oh, well, you shouldn't do this anymore. What kind of thing? I just wince at that, but that's what will happen if you don't have a solid foundation in what this is, and you've got enough practice under your belt, and you really get the difference between true communication and your own wheels spinning. And so I really go through that carefully with people, and I coach people, and I really love getting feedback with people on their exercises, because then I can coach them on what they're doing, and this helps everybody. I really am good at pointing out to people exactly what they're doing that will inhibit them from true telepathic communication. And then we get some really solid people coming out of this. Solid foundation. I mean, not solid people, but solid foundation in the telepathic communication. So then I won't see this in the future out of these people. I won't see these kind of things where they're judging people and they're putting their agendas on people, because you just can't do this when you're true to the animals. When you're really giving their communication, you just can't then put something false in. It just doesn't work.
I'm going to take this course, because I know even you can always find different ways of looking at things.
Exactly.
Even that animal communication is, well, telepathy is telepathy. So it's going to be similar to spirit communication or psychic work. You're tapping into the field, as you said.
Yes.
Everybody, if you're interested in the course, check the description. If you're watching on YouTube, it'll be in the description notes under here about how to find out more about Penelope's course. Actually, it's probably going to link to the free event the Shift Network does to introduce a course.
Yes.
Do you know what your 1 hour intro, you usually do some kind of a great exercise?
Oh, yes. I do a really beautiful exercise that I just love, which is similar to what I start the course out with, where I use the drum and the ancient ways. Everybody is connected to drums. Whatever culture you're from, whatever ancestry you have, we're all connected to drums. So I connect people to the heartbeat. And we do a meditation where I lead people into connecting to all the, of course, people on the earth, the native people on the earth, and all their own ancestry. And then we connect to all the animals. We start out in the close circle, and then we go further and further until we're holding hands, literally, really holding hands and paws, and connected to all the animals of the earth and all the people that are doing this exercise together.
Beautiful.
And so already I've gotten feedback on people that have had a chance to watch the introduction, that, wow, it just really reverberated through them, and they just felt so connected to all the animals. So that's what we want.
This is why Stephen reached out to me. He rarely does this. He said, I just finished recording one of the most powerful, phenomenal intro events that he's ever done. He says,
Oh, that's so
"You got to
sweet.
check this out." So I got the goosebumps. So, well, again, if this video will and audio will air for a long time, so if I don't want to talk about the date, if the date is already passed, you'll still be able, using that
Yes,
below, to go back and catch that. So that's beautiful.
yes.
Well, how about we love the stories. How about another story of a beautiful healing that happened from your interaction with somebody else's animal?
Yeah. Um, the one that's coming up was a very moving one for me. A woman called me. She was a holistic healer and worked with training horses in a holistic way. And this must have been, the 1980s. It was a while back. And she rescued racehorses. And I don't know if you know anything about the racehorse industry, but
I
it's
don't, but I can
very,
imagine.
very brutal.
Mm.
And horses are raced before their bones even grow properly and are closed. They're raced as 2 year olds, and their knee bones aren't even closed properly. So horses get a lot of injuries. They don't even close, some of them when they're from between 4 to 6 years old. So they actually shouldn't be running like that until much later. So horses are brutalized and sometimes they're drugged, and it's just not a nice industry. So she was taking and rescuing racehorses who had been cast off by their people, basically. And what they do is they cast them off, and if that horse isn't adopted by somebody, if they aren't, they usually auction them, they're slaughtered, which is really, of course. Anyway, so she called me. I'll give her a different name. I'll call her Mary. Mary called me for a horse, and I'll give the horse a different name too. We'll call him, let's just call him Racer, because he was a thoroughbred racehorse. So we'll call him Racer. And she called me because she loved Racer. Oh my gosh, he was such a beautiful being. She loved him, and she wanted to show people. And by this time, after having been injured, although he won races, but then he was injured and he had lots of trauma around racing, but he was cast off and she adopted him. By this time, I think he was between 4 and 6 years old. I forget, he might have been 5 years old, which again in the racehorse industry is considered really old. You know, God, I mean, they're just adolescents then, really. So Racer was very traumatized, and the reason she was calling me is she was trying to race them properly and show that they could actually, because they're geared for that. Their bodies are geared for racing, their genetics are geared for racing. The horses actually like racing. They like to run if they're run without the trauma. Okay, so she was trying to show that you could race horses in a holistic, loving way. Okay, so she adopted him, but he had this peculiarity where he would be in the starting gate, and they have the gate closed, and in order to start the race, and the horses are all the gate is suddenly lifted up, and then the horses go, and the jockey is on the horse, and the horse goes only when the gate is lifted up. So what would happen is Racer would rear up, and he would stop, and he would move back and rear up instead of running. And once you don't run out of the gate, you've pretty much lost the race.
Right.
So he would rear up, and she tried every kind of healing technique and working with him in gentle ways. She did team touch, which is wonderful for horses to rehabilitate them. But Racer was severely traumatized. This was an severe emotional trauma. So he was so sensitive. Oh God, I just love this being. I'll never forget him. So we did a consultation, and he leaned his head on my consultation. He had his head like this, leaning against my chest. And he leaned against, and when I do consultations, I talk and tell the person what's going on. I listen, do the counseling, but as we're counseling and the emotional charge is going off, I just am very quiet and let the animal release. And then I tell the person what's going on. So literally, Racer had tears coming down. There was trauma after trauma of being beaten, I mean, this is a sensitive horse, and he's been beaten, he's been forced, he's been, he just associated that sound of the gate with he's going to be beaten, he's been beaten already, and he has to get out of here. So he went backwards. That was his only option. He's not going to go forwards, he's going to go backwards. So that's what he did. So we did incident after incident of trauma. And I couldn't help myself. Normally as a counselor, you stay very neutral, etc. But I will tell you, both of us, the tears were streaming down, and I relayed to Mary what was going on. And she was crying too, of course. We were all crying. I mean, there was just so much. And I think we released a lot for many other racehorses too at that time. So after that, Racer was much easier to handle. I'm not saying he had so much going on I'm not saying he immediately was a perfect racehorse after that. No, he needed a lot of gentle work, and she knew how to do that. I mean, she was the perfect person for him to be with. But he didn't jump and almost rear up and almost knock his person off anymore. But then he got more used to it, and we sort of did a little program, and I checked with him. I said, will this work for you if we do this first, if we do that first? What will work for you to help you to be more relaxed in the starting gate and to know when it's going to go off? Because he was anticipating, of course, how traumatic it was going to be. And so we worked out a little program, and gradually he was able to race again. And he was good. He was very good. I mean, she actually raced in races. I mean, she herself was very small, and she got a license and acted as the jockey, which was kind of amazing because this was sort of a breakthrough for women, for the horse, for everything. Anyway, she managed to race him. I'm not saying he won races after that. After working with him a number of times, she realized that, he was done, and he tried, but this wasn't for him anymore. It was just not, he wasn't going to be a winning racehorse again. But he was a being who could function in this world without being terrified of being brutalized. And so he ended up having a very good life with a person. He was adopted, and he became, I forget what activity he was in after that. But he was a talented horse. It's just that you just don't make beings do these horrible things. But unfortunately, there are people who do. And so you get a lot of horses who are traumatized. So he was one, and there were others that don't have such a brutal history that I was able to help in consultations where we shifted them around in one session. They were able to stop the behavior of not wanting to go into a trailer, and why they were afraid of the trailer, and all this was due to their emotions and their spiritual trauma. And when it's a training problem, that's a different thing. I'm not a trainer. That's for the horse people to do, to show them how to do things. But you can do so when they've been traumatized, then you have to get the trauma out of the way, or they'll react that way over and over again. And then people resort to violence. We'll just force the horse. Well, then you'll end up with either the horse is going to get hurt again, or you're going to get hurt again.
Wow.
So, and this goes for all beings, we all have a journey here on earth, which is not always very nice. And so then it's very important when beings have problems, whether they're dogs, cats, horses, and they're with people, and the people are having problems with, that you find out these things. You find out what's going on. Is there a pain in the way? Do they need veterinary treatment? Is it an emotional trauma? Do they not understand something? What's in the way of them doing this behavior of maybe biting people or maybe running away every time a certain kind of person comes in the room? You know, that's usually a clue of a trauma with that person that looks like that. But, you know, there's all kinds of things that are resolved. Again, you have to, this doesn't eliminate veterinary treatment. This is not veterinary treatment. Physical is the bottom line. So if an animal is in pain due to an illness or an injury, please see the vet. And then we can work with the emotional aspects and help the animal, or help them understand what's going on, help you understand what's going on with the animal. This changes, it changes the whole ball game with animals and enables you to have a better, deeper, higher relationship with them. I mean, things are just better. And then people get released from burdens, their fears about their animal friends, and they also have more joy in their life. You know, because they're getting closer to the animals that they love. They love their animal friends, obviously, but sometimes they don't understand things about them. And learning telepathic communication with animals helps you to be able to get it.
And so certainly because they're spiritual beings, I know that you also communicate with animals after they've passed.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Do you sense any difference in their communications or their energy
Well,
afterwards?
again, humans have can have a lot of, in this life, mental complications. You know, their minds get in the way of their awareness as a spiritual being. Animals don't have as much of that going on, but they can have traumas, particularly living with humans. They can take on things from humans. They can even take on some of the mental patterns from humans, or they may have human lifetimes that they're carrying with them. So I take everything as individual. You know, I mean, it's just like that saying in the Bible, my father's house has many mansions. Well, the spiritual realm is full of many, many things, and people have many, many experiences. There isn't one experience. You know, sometimes people will see these things about near-death experiences and they think, oh, well, that's how it happens with everybody. No, it's not how it happens with everybody. You know, I have worked with many, many beings, human beings, non-human beings, all species, when they go on. And each of them have different experiences. There are some animals who want to stay a while to help their people. And there are other animals who just want to show people what bliss they're having, how much joy they had, and to assure their people they had a wonderful life. And they're just now their guardian, you know, now that like their angel guardian.
Well, if in closing, what final bit of wisdom are you nudged by your guides to share with the audience?
Well, I would like to say to people that when you open up to telepathic communication with other species, it opens you to many, many worlds, many understandings, tremendous wisdom, ways of living in this life that are really, really beautiful and full of joy. So I wish for people this tremendous joy that opens up to you, and peace and learning and the wisdom of all species who are helping us in this life. I wish that for everybody, that they can have that incredible solace as they walk through the world, that we're walking together with trillions of other beings who give us great, great help.
Beautiful. Well, I'm excited about your course, and I haven't finished your book yet, but I'm really enjoying it, the Animal Speak book, but you have several books. So
Yes.
We'll have your website in the description, but why don't you give it to everybody now?
It's animaltalk.net.
Easy enough. All right. Well, Penelope, it's just been a joy talking with you. I know I'm excited about what I've learned and cannot wait to go talk to Nellie by leaning back. And Right. So much. And then we'll be
Thank
seeing you
you.
on the Ship Network.
Thank you very much. I've so enjoyed connecting with you and your beautiful work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye, everybody. Go out and have a great week.